The Nigerian government is pushing back against public fears over genetically modified foods, assuring citizens that genetically modified organisms, otherwise known as GMOs, are safe and essential for the nation's future. Speaking at a workshop in Abuja, top officials from the National Biotechnology Research and Development Agency strongly denied claims that GMOs are harmful or poisonous. They emphasized that Nigerian scientists are leading the research and will not approve anything dangerous for their own families and communities. Officials stated that GMOs have a 30-year history of safe use in over 45 countries and that Nigeria's regulatory framework is robust and science-driven. They argue that with a growing population and shrinking farmland, biotechnology is not optional but necessary to achieve food security. The government says genetically modified crops like insect-resistant and drought-tolerant maize will ensure a more stable food supply, lower prices, and better nutrition. For more expert perspectives on this debate about genetically modified organisms, former Executive Director at the Institute for Agricultural Research, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Professor Ishiyaku Mohammed, joins us now. Good morning, Prof. Good to have you join us on the morning show today.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Let's talk GMOs, Prof. There's a lot of attention around it these days. The Nigerian government, too, has been speaking. It looks like every opportunity to either assure or reassure Nigerians is now being taken up by the Nigerian government to say that not only are they safe, but that they are necessary. What are your thoughts? Where do you stand, given your vast experience in the agricultural value chain? Is this something that you think that the government should be doing at this time, given the level of hesitation, if not suspicion, that many Nigerians have about GMOs? Where do you stand on this debate?
The GM technology, which produces improved varieties of crops, not only in the maize that you alluded to, but many other crops can utilize this technology to improve the productivity of our crops and thereby closing the gaps of our national demand deficit. It is a modern scientific technology. It is based on science and several years of trial that has been adopted in expanding the capacity of our indigenous crops to be raised, to fight hunger, poverty, and a shortage of food, lower down cost of food, and other things. And the government is following the right direction in terms of assuring members of the public that it is safe. And this safety is not on emotional basis, it is on science-based facts that of the around 30 years of the use of genetically modified crops and their products the world over, including Nigeria. We just released genetically modified cowpeas, maize, and cotton in this country. Just like in other countries, very rigorous scientific testing to ensure and show to members of the public that these crops, except for the increased productivity associated with the improvement, they are not different from any other conventional crops that we have around. And there are problems of production that unfortunately the larger consumers of crop products dwell in our cities. They have no idea how these things are cultivated. For example, there are many Nigerians who don't know the difference between guinea corn and maize in terms of its structure, talk less of how it is cultivated and what are the problems in the field that reduce farmers' harvest. Farmers are the ones struggling with these problems. But those of us in the urban centers respond to the usual social media circulation of very scary things which are unfounded, very unscientific, dwelling on our emotions is like scaring someone who has never flown in an aircraft, telling the individual how dangerous an aircraft is, and just to make sure that that individual never flies again. But that I want to assure Nigerians, I am a plant breeder. I have developed, for example, more than 14 different varieties of beans which are being consumed by Nigerians, including the recent, second to the recent one, which is genetically modified. And based on the real safety, we do that which the government directed us to reduce the scourges of agricultural production in this country. And on that basis, we leverage on very safe scientific techniques to ensure that we fulfill the government's desire to provide safe food. Not only are we left on our own, but we have a regulator who is like our NAFDAC in the drug industry. They look at every aspect of our research to ensure that every aspect of our research is safe for Nigerian consumption. By the way, I'm also a Nigerian. I get trained in Nigeria, and I have my families in Nigeria. I was brought up from a village and from a farming family for that matter. So not only that I will say that socially, but I am assuring Nigerians that I am involved in the development of these products. I know the procedures, I know the process, and we also submit ourselves to the regulatory authority to find out and answer all the safety questions they ask us. For example, how does it compare to our conventional genetically improved material? And whether or not, in addition to what we said this new improved variety can do, does it also affect some other does it have any unintended consequences? For example, when you replant it, is it going to affect the soil? We have found out that rather than degrading the soil, it even enriches the potential of the soil where these materials are planted. Could it be replanted? Yes, it can be replanted. For the last 8 or 5 years that we have been planting these genetically modified cowpeas, both on our research field and on farmers' field, those farmers replant other crops in those places, and the soil has remained as productive, if not more productive in many instances. And in terms of cooking, we have cooked and prepared different local dishes, including akara, moi moi, ogi, and so on from the genetically modified, just to show to members of the public that there isn't anything that is different from this new crop. So I'm sitting here not only as a scientist, but also as a Nigerian who has his families, that these products are safe, not only safe, but they have a very high economic potential in ameliorating the ravages of our agricultural system in the country.
All right, Prof. Thank you so much for that introduction to this conversation. Now, based off of everything you've said, I would like to point out a few things that you have mentioned. With regards to your comparison of guinea corn and maize, you basically emphasized and pointed out that truly and truly, a lot of Nigerians are ignorant about some of these things, and there isn't a lot of widespread depth of knowledge. Whereas there are a lot of Nigerians that are running on emotion with regards to their opinions about genetically modified foods. Now, you talked about processes and procedures. If you say processes and procedures, don't you think that it is important for these Nigerians that may not even know to have a very, very clear explainer in detail of what these processes and procedures are, especially when you juxtapose this with the fact that looking at the world at large, you have the EU that is very, very, very strict, extremely strict on genetically modified crops. In fact, there's a tough approval process. They have banned cultivation outrightly. You have China. They allow GM imports, but there's no cultivation on their soil. There is no GM being cultivated. They're working on their own version, which I find really interesting, something called GM rice, but that is still merely a speculation. Now, with regards to how genetically modified foods have been adopted in most of the countries, South Africa, the United States, there is very, very basic information that even the grassroots can understand in terms of labeling, in terms of explainers, in terms of orientation. So I would like you to please expand on the procedures and processes that are currently being taken in very, very simple terms to ensure that, number one, there is the ability to choose for Nigerians. For the Nigerians who are saying, no, we don't want it, they can still decide whether or not to ingest it. They won't be confused by it. And number two, what is the rollout plan? How is it going to be introduced into the market? And number three, for these farmers who may not know better, what is the orientation plan for them as well?
Well, thank you very much. The procedure is, I want Nigerians to recognize the fact that especially those who are not conversant with improvement of the genetic potential of crops generally, day in, day out, that is my life. We identify problems that affect our farmers and reduce the productivity of their harvest, and then use scientific approaches by intermating and then introduce characters that will enhance the total genetic potential. Genetic potential is that natural potential of any organism that can be expressed given the right environment. For example, for crops, the genetic potential of a crop can be expressed fully under fertile soil conditions and so on and so forth. Now, our conventional approach in terms of the procedure is to effect marriage between type A of a sorghum or guinea corn and another type B of guinea corn. Now, in terms of genetic modification, with an advancement in the understanding of science, just like we now use drones to send food in a city precisely to a place. So genetic modification is a scientific procedure that is very precise, targeting which character the improvement will transfer from one source to another to enhance the genetic capacity. That is the procedure, and we have always maintained and explained to members of the public as much as we can, but Nigeria is very big. Probably our explanation has not gone that far. Now, alluding to EU and any other country for that matter, countries have the right to decide on, there are countries where at one time, if you remember, they banned the use of television in their countries. So that is their own choice. But EU imports GM products into their countries. And GM is being grown in Spain and so on. I don't want us to get bothered about what other countries will do and what another country will not do. It is as if we have lost our own sovereignty, so we dwell on what other countries can do before we can do it. We started this in Nigeria on the decision and the recognition of the economic potential of this technology on developing our country. That was how the Nigerian leadership came into being, and we were asked to leverage on our own skills to develop this improved material. Now, the other question you said, how is it going to be labeled? There's a regulator in the country that is bestowed with the responsibility to ensure that GM crop varieties are appropriately labeled at different levels. And Dr. Yemisi Asagbara is the Director General of the Nigerian Biosafety Management Agency. The law has clearly made it clear that the labeling requirements are there as enshrined. That as soon as any material, any sack containing grains of any crop carries certain proportion which are genetically modified in origin, it should be appropriately labeled. What was the third question?
No, it's okay. You can. Okay, thank you, sir.
Hello?
Thank you, sir, for that explanation. Now, I have two questions. I'm just going to follow up what you said. First was about the labeling and appropriate labeling. As you said, a lot of these things in Nigeria are the beginning products and not the end product. You would not know if the beans in your moi moi is GMO or if the corn in your barbecue is GMO. And so people are asking how we can appropriately label GMO within our environment. And also you spoke about sovereignty. And a lot of pushback, not because there is a lot of conspiracy online, but some of the valuable pushback we're getting is on sovereignty and the importance to control our own value chain and our own seeds and seedlings and to not import them from abroad, because part of sovereignty is that we would require for food security to be able to feed ourselves. And if we're now reliant on seeds or seedlings from international companies providing us these GMOs, can we truly call ourselves sovereign?
No, I am a Nigerian, and I would like Nigerians to know that Nigeria is one of the few countries in the world that has absolute control over its genetic materials in the country. So let nobody ever think that any time will come, either now or in future, that anybody, either corporate or individuals, will take over the control of our genetic materials and our planting materials. As for the development of these new crop varieties utilizing these technologies, we have indigenous scientists who have the capacity to do it. I am one of them. I have my colleagues also all over the places who come from all over Nigeria and have these skills and technique to do it. And besides, we only deploy this technology where it is necessary. For example, we have no option other than to continuously spray maize in farmers' field against stem borer and fall armyworm, which causes more than 40% yield loss to farmers, and thereby aggravating our food scarcity problem. So as for labeling, whether a moi moi that is being prepared is from GM or from a non-GM, something that Nigerians are entitled to know by law, it should be labeled. There's no problem. There's a provision for labeling. The marketers of these products, the aggregators, I am not in a position to tell the National Biosafety Management Agency but they have brought out guidelines on how labeling should be adhered to. I know the concern of people saying that I need to know what I'm eating. Yes, is very right. Not that because it is dangerous, but it is important for people to know. So it can be labeled.
All right, Prof. Thanks for your submissions so far. And I like the fact that you mentioned that there are Nigerian scientists who are looking into this, who ought to look into this so that they can adequately address the concerns and the pushback from Nigerian people. But then the question that a lot of people are also asking is that if there are Nigerian scientists, including your good self, since you have used yourself as an example, people are wondering that what are your scientific-based submissions as to the safety, absolute safety of GMOs, because of the concerns that are there regarding cancer, regarding, overall safety. And people are also asking that the scientists that we are talking about, whether they are Nigerians or otherwise, where are they getting their funding from? Because of the international politics around the GMOs and, what is going on underground. People are saying that if scientists or even the agencies themselves are known to have been receiving support from certain institutions or certain individuals, particularly from the United States, that maybe that says a lot about why we should be careful. Are these concerns that you have been encountering in all that you are doing regarding the GMOs? And then secondly, what is your view as to the ordinary farmers? How are they accepting the fact that ultimately, because of the food shortage that we are experiencing, maybe nobody will be left with any choice at some point as to whether they want to deal in GMOs or not? What are your farmers? What are those who are not as learned as yourself? What are they saying to you at this point?
Let me start with the last question. I would want to assure you that farmers are now looking for the seeds of these varieties we have developed, and we have difficulty in coping up with the multiplication, the rate of the multiplication to spread across, because the first variety starts from a small portion, and then we keep increasing it and then making it available to the farmers. It is based on the fact that conventional cowpeas requires around 8 sprays of insecticides, while this new variety can do as good as if it has been sprayed 8 times with only 2 sprays of chemical insecticides. It is on that basis that farmers are looking for it. Additionally, they have also looked at it as it doesn't look any different from the cowpea or the beans they are used to. Now, in terms of the safety that you asked, first of all, safety parameters are defined. How is something defined as unsafe? How is it going to be determined being unsafe? In food scientists have defined that safety of food is defined by its safety of not eliciting any biochemical or physiological reaction after it is taken, in terms of allergic reaction and so on and so forth, that it does not cause any harm or leading to any fatality when it is consumed. Thirdly, that environmentally, if you plant this crop, is it going to trigger anything in the environment? For example, instead of becoming a small plant of beans, is it going to grow to become a tree, or is it going to damage the soil and so on? We have proved for the last 6 years now that this new cowpea and the new maize variety is as safe environmentally as any conventional maize or cotton or beans variety. Now, as for the funding, the concern that who is funding it, I'm being funded by Nigerian government. My salary is being paid by Nigerian government. The Federal Minister of Agriculture, through my university, is sponsoring our work. Now, it may sound unusual that if it now becomes a source of concern for something, while it is no longer anything of concern for other things. For example, our churches and mosques are receiving donations from all over the places. Nobody raised any ears, or it doesn't have any implication on our sovereignty. Is it only in terms of academic development and partnership that we are going to have any concern? Now, we have laws in this country that limits for whatever purpose, especially for sabotage. I'm sure someone may be alluding to the possibility of sabotaging our sovereignty. Our laws are there to safeguard this. Whether or not somebody is funding anything that will counter the unity and stability of this country is being watched by Nigerian government. And the government is not as foolish as people think or allude from time to time. We check and select our partnership. To the best of my understanding, the Nigerian government has been collaborating with only those partners that have
Prof.
Nigeria's interests at heart.
Thank you so much. Now, still going back to a few things you've said, a lot of what we've heard you say today speaks to placing our trust in you and in your judgment.
No, I think I have not addressed the issue.
Oh, go ahead. Address the issue.
Yes. Go on, I have not addressed the issue of cancer. You said cancer.
Okay. Yes.
Some people have associated these GM products with cancer. There is nowhere in any literature, any scientifically proven point that there's association between consumption of genetically modified crop products with development of cancer. I'm not a medical scientist, I'm not a human pathologist, but there is none nowhere whosoever claims that, the claims are being put forward by those people who don't know the difference between a yam tuber and a cassava. They are not experts. They only claim they are being experts.
Okay, thank you so much for pointing that out. Now, as I was saying, and we will come to what you've just said about cancer. A lot of what you have said today speaks to us placing our trust in you, in your research, in the work that you've done. But again, what I was trying to say is Nigerians cannot place their trust in what you are saying. They can only place their trust in what they can see and what has been proven and tested. Furthermore, you spoke about intermating and introducing characters with regards to GMOs. Now, I'm aware that there is a new technology that is currently being used called the clustered regulatory interspaced short palindromic repeats. Now, this is a gene editing technology that allows scientists to precisely cut, add modified DNA into organisms, but it also has a lot of ethical and social concerns. And one of them borders on seed ownership, farmer equity and farmer dependency. The question is, who owns these seeds that we are buying? And why was the old technology dropped? When did we switch to this new technology? And in terms of dependency, who owns these seeds that we are getting? At what point do these Nigerian farmers begin to earn? Because we're not producing the seeds. So we're probably licensing the seeds, I'm not sure, meaning that some money will have to be paid. Who is going to be benefiting from this before the Nigerian farmers begin to benefit? Who owns the seeds? And I want you to speak on this new technology because we're aware that there's been series of tests and trials with regards to technology. So why was the old method dropped to adopt this new clustered system, the CRISPS, if I'm not mistaken, method picked up?
It is not dropped. And no system is being dropped. It is a combination of approach and whichever. There are some problems in science that cannot be tackled through one approach. So you combine a number of approaches, both the old ones and this new one. This new technology you are alluding to is actually a precision technology. Just like your digital television with an analog television. And so it's an improvement. But we don't drop those other technologies. Hand in hand, crop improvement and also in some instances animal improvement combine whichever demands, which problem demands, which technology that can be applied at any given time. Now, given that, I would like to dwell on the ownership of seed also. There is the Nigerian seed law. The regulator of seed affairs in this country is the National Agricultural Seed Council. They have a director general who is responsible for regulating anything. But in summary, I'm not speaking for them, but I would like to assure Nigerians that the Nigerian seed law gives ownership of seed to whosoever owns that seed. What I am aware of is that farmers can replant their seed once they buy or they get from a research institute, they can continue to plant it. What they will not do is to grow this seed and go and sell it in the name of that original seed. It's like copying somebody's song on a CD, go and sell it without his permission. But you can make as many copies of that CD and listen by your relations and so on and so forth. So in Nigeria, we don't have that. Nobody, I assure Nigerians that Nigerians, knowing Nigerians, if you remember our indigenization act of those days, Nigerians are very proud people. They will never allow anybody to come and subject us to this kind of things people are speculating. I belong to a public research institution, and whatever we do is for public good. All the seeds we gave to farmers to plant, it is their own. They can plant and replant and replant and replant if they so wish.
Okay, so I want to clarify something. When you say you gave the farmers the seed and it's their own, do you mean that you are donating seeds to farmers every season?
Let me explain to our viewers that seed, when you hear seed is being sold, it is not the seed that is being sold, but it is the multiplication activities that is being sold. For example, my institute does not have the capacity to say, for example, multiply 18 million tons of seed for which Nigerian farmers will require. Somebody will make it a business, even you, if you like. You can get registered with the National Agricultural Seed Council and be a seed multiplier. You multiply the seed, sort it out, package it, and then sell to people who want to buy from you. But they are not buying the genetic material from you, but they are simply buying something that has been multiplied. Yes, for our own purpose, being a public institution, we have pockets of partners to demonstrate how good our technology is. So we give them seed to them, for them as a starter. But that is the end of it. The rest is now left for them to continue.
Okay, but Prof, I need you to, because this seed issue, right? Number one, biologically, GMOs can regrow again, obviously, if planted, they're living organisms. But because GM seeds are bred as hybrids, we know that the second generation, that is the replanted, would lose strength. That is basic biology. And then with regards to the legal concerns and commercial, the seed companies, which is why I asked who owns the seeds. There are people who create the seeds, whether it's Corteva, it's Monsanto, whoever. Whoever owns these seeds oftentimes sell their GMO seeds under patent protection, meaning that farmers must sign contracts again and they are required to buy fresh seeds for each season. Some of them even do not allow the replanting. This is not free, for lack of a better word. This is a proper contractual engagement, which is why I then asked you the seeds that we are getting, who owns them, and what contract are we getting into with them in order to obtain these seeds for farmers? Or are they just giving it to us like that?
I would like anybody in the public to come and verify whether anybody has ever, he or she, been forced to come and buy seed again after he has bought the first time. It doesn't happen in Nigeria. It doesn't happen. Now, let me also explain the difference between a hybrid seed and a genetically modified seed. Genetic modification is a procedure of transferring good character to a new variety, whereas which just came up around 30 years ago in its use. Whereas hybrids are offsprings of first generation mating, as you said, in crops such as maize, millet, and so on and so forth. This technology of hybrid is based on the understanding that certain plants, when you force them to self-pollinate after certain generations, great-grandchildren, and you have two separate, unrelated parents, when they come together, their productivity is manifold more than their parents. So it is called hybrid vigor. It is this phenomenon of biology that is being exploited. So the first generation, you are right, is the most productive. Thereafter, there is what is called, in genetic term, the segregation. For example, the character will become, the strength will be full in the first generation. In the second generation, the strength of the character will reduce by half, and then third generation by quarter, and so on and so forth. This is not genetic modification. It is not related to genetic modification by any means. But you could find a hybrid maize that is also genetically modified. But you could find hybrid variety that is not genetically modified. So I want members of the public to understand the difference. Genetically modified varieties could be hybrid, or they could be non-hybrid. Like in cowpea or beans, we do not have hybrids.
All right. Professor Mohammed, we want to thank you for joining us on the morning show today, and thanks for all the clarity, the clarifications that you have brought into the subject. It's still very debatable, many of these submissions, but of course we appreciate your good insight. Thank you for joining us on the morning show.